On the back of your two heads so we can make sure. Good evening, and thank you for attending our presentation tonight. We welcome back Joseph Goldberg, class of 1996. Detective Goldberg works for the Opioid Enforcement Unit within the Criminal Investigative Division of the Arundel Police Department. We thank him for his time and care to prepare this presentation and hope it provides those of you here and at home with some pertinent information related to drug use. Please welcome Detective Goldberg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Detective Joe Goldberg. I'm with the Arundel County Police. I did graduate here in 1996, and I then graduated from the University of Baltimore in 2000. And simultaneously, I started the Arundel County Police Academy. After graduating the police academy, I spent a couple years in patrol, as every young officer does, but then I quickly started moving into some other units. I spent a couple years in a community service-oriented unit, and then from there I went into a street-level drug unit for the Northern District, which is northern Arundel County from Brooklyn Park, all the way down to Pasadena. And then from there I went into our district detectives, working violent crimes, shootings, stabbings, robberies, home invasions, which a lot of that stemmed around drug trade. In 2017, the opiate crisis was taking full effect in our region, and they created a fatal overdose unit. Now the name has changed to the Opioid Enforcement Unit, but it's the same concept. We would look into every fatal death that was attributed to fentanyl and opiates. We would data mine phones and other evidence in trying to link it to drug dealers and potentially charge them. A lot of times, though, is not enough evidence, but we can still identify drug dealers, and then I give that information to members in my unit or my building, and then we try to target them and go after them to get them off the streets from selling this poison. Over the past few years, I've built a close relationship with the health department in Arundel County. We do case reviews, make recommendations, get messaging out, and doing PIAs. A lot of them you probably hear on the radio every day when you're driving in your car. Recently, I've joined the harm reduction team for Arundel County, and I also sit in on the state health department's meeting every month. Also, for the past 5 years, I've been helping teach recruits at the police academy in drug identification, packaging, typical sales, and have moved on to a lot of teaching aspects for other groups, trying to spread the message. In the past year, I've also sat down with a training session for the circuit court judges for Arundel County. And I sit with the health department almost daily, going over trends. So if the judges and the health department listen to me, I hope that you listen to this message as well. So you ask, why am I here? There have been 2 emerging trends in fatal overdoses that's been identified by the state. African Americans over 50 and teenagers. That's why I'm here. Last spring we had 2 15-year-olds overdose. They tried a couple doses of cocaine, enjoyed it. They went back and got a 3rd dose, but this time it was fentanyl. Luckily, both of them are saved. Last month, I am now currently investigating the death of a 16-year-old Latino female. She overdosed on fake oxys that repressed fentanyl. Just last week, we had another 16-year-old overdose. The person admitted they took a Percocet that was a fake, that was fentanyl, made to look like a prescription pill. That person had a history of substance abuse and some mental health issues, which we're going to get into, and that's what drives a lot of this. So this is where we start. What is one of St. Joe's popular slogans that we have amongst ourselves? Brothers for life. Well, all of you will hopefully one day be my brothers as well when you graduate. Hopefully you've been staring at this slide that's presented. It probably looks like any teenage boy's room. Hopefully you can note the class of 2007, Mount St. Joseph, and in the back wall of the bedroom, his class picture. I investigated that fatal overdose in 2019. Imagine my surprise when I got to the house and met with the family who was grieving in the kitchen and started talking to them, and then went upstairs to the bedroom to investigate this death. What I saw as I approached that door, knowing that that was one of my little brothers that is laying in that room dead. So we're here to talk about fentanyl awareness. It's not just an epidemic here in Baltimore and the surrounding counties, but across our entire country. And if you've seen any of the mass media reports, you hear about it. The gel caps here on the top left, that is one of the most common packaging methods in the Baltimore region. But this is what it also may look like. Pressed pills, white powder, and in other parts of the country, black tar heroin. This is what it ends up looking like when you have a problem. Those photographs are from the Kensington Village area of Philadelphia. Slumped over, knotted out, in a zombie-like state. We'll talk about it again in a couple slides. But people that are injecting the fentanyl that's laced with xylazine, you've probably also heard that in the news. It causes the sores that abscess, and if not controlled, eventually could lead to amputations of the limbs. So where does it come from and how does it get here? How is it made? Some packaging methods, paraphernalia that goes with it, current trends that we're seeing, signs of an overdose, and overdose response to it. We're going to talk about all this. Originally, Baltimore was known as a big heroin town. Until about 2015, 2016, it started to be laced with the fentanyl and now has been replaced with just fentanyl. Heroin accounts for about 1% to 2% of the opiates that are still out there. It originally originated out of Afghanistan, Southeast Asia, South America. It was derived from the poppy plant. They would squirt, the sap would leach out, it would be collected. After several days, they would start mixing it with various chemicals, evaporate off the chemicals, and then you were left with the dry white powder that was known as heroin. There's some examples of different images of the coloring that it could be. In the Southwest, you have the black tar heroin, it's common. Here, the white powder or that brownish powder would be in this area a lot. The problem with heroin is it's timely to produce it. It's very costly to get it shipped from those other countries to America. For them to make a profit off of it, they had to cut it with a lot of different cutting agents. But it was still a very costly drug until I back up. Heroin would come in and it would get pushed into the United States through the southwest border. The fentanyl now that's being produced in Mexico is coming to the country the same way. So fentanyl, what is it? It was commonly used as a cutting agent then to heroin. They would add it in to the heroin mixture to make it more strong, more potent, get more customers. However, being synthetic, it's stronger and cheaper to manufacture. So now it has overtaken the entire heroin market in this region. The majority sold here is actually pure fentanyl. There's approximately 2,400 types of analogs of fentanyl in this process of making it. These are some common packaging methods that we see in the Baltimore, Central Maryland areas. The gel caps on the far right is the most common in Baltimore. Annapolis, you may see in baggies or pieces of folded paper, old lottery tickets, magazine pages. Northeast Maryland and areas that are getting close to Philadelphia and Wilmington, you'll tend to see a lot of the wax bindles, which is more common up in that region. So when I get reports of stuff on the lower eastern shore, it's typically that type of packaging. However, the expansion of the fentanyl from Baltimore is making its way down there, and they're starting to see the gel caps. Some associated paraphernalia that you will frequently see. And this is mostly for parents that I want you to look out for. If you see this in your house, your child's car, their bedroom, burnt spoons. The fentanyl is a soluble white powder. You can dissolve it in water, heat it up, and then you can draw it into the syringe and inject it. It's very potent. You can just take a simple straw from McDonald's or Wendy's, cut a section of it off, and snort it. It gets through the mucous membranes. Another common way, and I don't have a photo of it, is smoking it. The 16-year-old young lady that passed away last month was taking aluminum foil, making a bowl, crushing up fake Oxycontin pills, putting it in there, heating it with a lighter, and inhaling the vapors. We just talked about these. It's easily injected, snorted, and or smoked. Some of the new trends that we're seeing with the fentanyl is not the typical packaging methods or the normal streams of how you can purchase it. The top right corner, those are Molly pills, MDMA, ecstasy, goes by a lot of different street names. The cartels in Mexico are taking a common party drug, and instead of having MDMA, it's fentanyl. You can take one of them and it can cause a death. Mixed with cocaine or crack. I had a case a couple years ago. A couple was smoking crack cocaine. They thought it was just crack. One person was saved, the other one unfortunately died. We tested the crack pipe. It was positive for cocaine and for fentanyl. Drug dealers don't care. They want your money, and they don't care about what happens to you. You're just going to keep coming back to get more. Pressed pharmaceutical pills. You probably have them in your medicine cabinet if you've had some kind of injury or surgery. Oxycontin, Percocet. Now, a lot of doctors aren't prescribing them anymore because of the stigma that brought, because they were just pushing pills out there and got everybody addicted. The cartels, they know that, they don't care. So they make it look just like the pills. And they're brought across the border and are sold on your street every day. Even the Xanax, alprazolams. I've even heard of reports of Adderall, kids with ADHD issues. If you're buying stuff on the street, chances are you're buying fentanyl. It's easy to conceal. It may look like real pills or another drug. It's easy to dupe the buyer. It's easy to try to dupe law enforcement. And with the pharmaceuticals, drug rates are based on the milligram of the drug that you think you're buying. So a 15 milligram oxycodone tablet or 30 milligram oxycodone tablet. One tablet would be considered a dosage unit. If you just went and bought one dosage unit of a gel cap in Baltimore on a street corner, it would cost you roughly $10. A drug dealer can charge you at $1 per milligram $15 for that pill or $30 for that pill. So they're making a profit off of you, consumers. Typically, they're crushed into a powder and then snorted, or, as I said before, you can put it in a foil bowl, heat it, and inhale the vapors. It's odorless, it's tasteless. Your child could be sitting in their bedroom, in a bathroom, in their car, and doing it right before you, and you wouldn't even know. Let's talk about some signs of an overdose. Lethargic, slumped posture. We saw the first picture of the people in Kensington, slumped over in the middle of the sidewalk. Or it may just be somebody sitting on the couch watching TV, slumped over in an odd position. The blowing of the lips and fingertips. What'll happen is the opiates attach to the receptors in your brain. It's going to stop you from breathing eventually. As your fingertips and other extremities in your body don't get oxygen, you start to turn blue. Pinpoint pupils. They will constrict down to about the size of a pinhead in broad daylight when everybody else is wearing sunglasses. Shallow breathing. Again, the opiates shut down the breathing receptors in your brain, and the breathing becomes so lethargic that then eventually you'll go into a snoring sound. It's agonal breathing. That's you about to die when you get to that point without immediate intervention. And you become unresponsive to stimuli. Mom or dad shaking you, trying to wake you up, and you can't because you're on the verge of death. How do we respond to an overdose? Administer Narcan. You hear it on the radio 3 or 4 times a day over the PIAs. The health department distributes it. You can buy it at your local pharmacies. Doctors may prescribe it. Start providing CPR. You got to get that blood circulating again. If you call 911 and you don't know how to do CPR, they will walk you through how to perform CPR until further medical help gets there to help. Obviously, we're calling 911. All the police departments in our region, we all carry it. The fire department carries it. Make sure you call us. Over the past couple years, our non-fatal overdoses numbers have been declining. And myself and members of the health department and others, we talk about what may be driving these numbers down. Well, there's a lot of Narcan out there now that people have, and they're saving each other. And that is what we are attributing that decline to. However, our fatal overdose numbers are staying fairly consistent across the region from year to year now for the past few years. One of the things we talk about frequently is the Good Samaritan Law. If you're not familiar with it, it's a law that was enacted a few years ago. It states that if you try to help someone else that's suffering from an overdose, that you're not held accountable for if something goes wrong. If they end up dying, you can't be sued or held liable or charged by law enforcement. It's a very important law. It does have some loopholes from a law enforcement perspective, but it's a very good law for everybody because then it enables us to help each other and save each other's lives. Up above is my contact information. Unfortunately, I don't work for a private company or that goes around doing lectures. I'm here for you tonight because you're my little brothers. And this is a message I want to get out to you to try to help you and prevent you from going down this road. Please feel free to call me or email me any information that you have, or questions or thoughts. One of the recurring themes in a lot of these cases that I have reviewed over the years, there's a mental health element about it. Life is hard and stressful. If you're struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help. Many stigmas that have been out there for years are being knocked down, and we're breaking through those barriers. Drugs, and especially the opiates, are not the answer. I'm here every Thanksgiving for beef and beer night. I am here every February for the bull roast. I hope that you all graduate and get to be one of my little brothers. Thank you for having me, and I hope this information was helpful. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
What are the annual numbers of fatalities or overdoses?
Unfortunately, I do not have those numbers with me. I know for Anne Arundel County, I still average about 120 deaths per year. I was just at a training last week with somebody from Baltimore County, and they said they were somewhere in the 300 range. And I know Baltimore City is significantly higher.
I think it was 2,300 in 2023. 2,300 for the whole state.
So the last time I had a meeting, the total numbers for 23 weren't in yet. But
Where are most teenagers getting this drug from? Because you mentioned that teens are.
if they have a car, they can just drive up here, several blocks from campus. Any number of corners in the city, people are standing out there and as you drive by, they'll wave you down and will sell to you. A lot of it is word of mouth. Everybody's got smartphones. They're Snapchatting, Instagramming, something or others, and the word gets out that, hey, this is cool. Call this person. And with these devices in our hands, it's easy to make a connection, and we can meet. They'll drive to you, or you can drive to them. They'll meet you around the corner. All you need is some cash, and they'll take your money and give you this poison.
In your presentation, you had those called boy or smack. What are some other terms that parents might see in social media posts or hear their son say to be clues?
Dope, fenty. Typically with the opiates, it's boy. Cocaine-based products, be it powder or crack, usually has a feminine, so it's girl. But so with the opiates, I want some of that boy. I want the boys to come around tonight. Or another one is fire. If it's strong, it's potent. That stuff is fire. Yeah, I want some of that fire. So any of those are keywords that you want to key in on. Going back to the slide with the paraphernalia. You go in and check your boys' rooms, check their car, their hideout in the basement. If you start seeing your kitchen spoons missing, and then you find them with residue in them and a burn spot on the bottom, that's a clue. Or you start finding straws around the house, cut into 2-inch segments, pieces of aluminum foil shaped into a bowl and with a big burn mark on the bottom. Sometimes the foil can be more open. They'll lay the pill, and when they hit it with the lighter, the pill will actually race across the paper, leaving streaks, a burnt streak mark. These are all some telltale signs. The empty gel caps, empty pieces of a sandwich baggie that's cut off. These are all telltale signs of some drug use that you might see. Some of the other packaging methods that are traditionally have been more for crack cocaine, and I don't have any pictures of them, I apologize. They're called trash cans. It's about a 1/2 inch high, and when you look at it, it looks like a little plastic trash can. It looks like it could be a Lego. But they will put cocaine, drugs. I've had cases where they're putting fentanyl right in the trash cans. Or if you go to the department store and you get the little perfume or cologne testers, the little glass vials, they have them with all kinds of different pretty colors, caps. They'll put it in there. So any of these kinds of things are indicative and signs of drug paraphernalia and things you want to look out for and try to get help before it's too late.
Have you seen them use the vapes with it?
I have it is out there. It does exist, that they can get the fentanyl into a form that it will vaporize. I have not personally seen it in this region. I was just at a training last week in Montgomery County. That instructor was from Albuquerque, New Mexico area, and they have seen it there. So it may just be a matter of time before it shows up. It's like any other trend. It'll probably eventually show up.
How about marijuana laced with fentanyl? Have you seen that?
I have heard of one instance, I believe it was out of New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe Massachusetts, where the marijuana was laced with fentanyl. They dissolve the powder into a liquid form, and then they basically spray it onto the marijuana. A lot of cases where I've had instances here in this region where with some kind of it's more cross-contamination, whereas a drug dealer has their scale, because drugs are sold in weight. and then the weight is how much then you pay for it. If they only have one scale and they put their fentanyl on there and measure that up and divvy it up into saleable dosage units, they're not in a lab, they're not in a kitchen where they're sanitizing their devices. That drug goes off, and here comes the cocaine. Then they measure up their cocaine on there. Now you have fentanyl-laced cocaine out there potentially. Or they could put their marijuana on the scale right after they have measured out their doses of fentanyl. Now you have laced marijuana. So it is conceivably possible that they are directly lacing it, but I think a lot of times that I have found is it's more of a cross-contamination issue, more so than a lacing. However, fentanyl in its pure form is a white powder. Cocaine in its pure form is a white powder. MDMA, Molly, ecstasy, whatever you want to call it, in its pure form is a white powder. Every synthetic drug that is out there starts as a white powder. So there's no way to know what you're dealing with until it's tested in a drug lab somewhere and they can quantify and say, yes, this is what the actual drug is. You just don't know. And being a powder, you can make it into whatever you want. You can make it into, there's pretty blue pills. You can make it into the pharmaceuticals. You can go online. You used to be able to buy them on Amazon, but you can go on the dark web if you know how, and you can buy dye machines or pill press machines. And then you can buy the dyes that will make the shape and imprint that you want. And then you can also order up the filler and the dye to make it whatever color you want. And you could press your own. So it's scary because you don't know what you're getting. Short of going to CVS after you get a prescription from your doctor, or Walgreens, or Rite Aid, or whatever pharmacy you go to, you might as well assume it's pressed fentanyl. No. So that's, no, that's the great thing about Narcan. Narcan only does one thing. It'll reverse the effects of an opiate overdose. So you could walk up to me right now, I could take Narcan that I have out in my car, and I can squirt it up my nose, and it will do absolutely nothing other than run out of my nose. The only thing it will do is if somebody is under the influence and overdosing from an opiate, not just fentanyl, but any opiate, it'll reverse the effects. The problem is the purity of and the amount of drug that they took. If they took, say, something that's like carfentanil that is much more potent, even than fentanyl, or there's some other new designer opiates out there called nitazines, and there's a whole long list of them that are even more potent than fentanyl. So it may take a few doses of Narcan to revive the person, but Narcan will not have any kind of adverse effect on somebody if it's not opiate related.
We have a question from the chat for the stream. If the police know where the dealers are selling, why don't the police capture them and put them in jail? How difficult has it been to try and stop the supply line?
That is a good question. There's a lot of reasons for that. The whole defund the police movement, after a lot of that took place, a lot of the opiates in this region funnel through Baltimore City. They come in the country through Mexico, they might hit some other hub cities, but they'll eventually make their way eastward. They hit the 95 corridor, and then we're along that 95 corridor. So it comes into Baltimore, it's a hub. From there, then it breaks down, and we'll start moving into the counties. one of the major markets for fentanyl that everybody buys is in Baltimore City. It's a lot of street corner boys, stuff like that, dope houses. But with a lot of these defund the police movements, and the police have tended to back off and not have those interactions, clearing corners, stuff like that, just because the image that it posed to the community, it's allowed this to fester. Conversely, you start getting into the counties. Your next door neighbor could be selling this stuff. They take it in the house, they can package it up behind closed doors, put it in their backpack, go get in their car, and again, everybody has a smartphone. Hey, I need this. Okay, meet me at the gas station. Meet me at Walmart. And you can blend right in with the everyday community, that populace. And a drug transaction, because in an investigative, undercover capacity, or as witnessing other investigations, a drug transaction takes all of about 5 seconds. You could pull up, I can walk over, drop it into your window, you hand me your money, and I walk away, and it's done. And then we're both going in separate directions. So detection is the biggest part. And then once we do identify, trying to build an investigation to go after them.
About alcohol poisoning, have you seen, like underage alcohol use being a problem?
I do not personally, because I am working in a very niche specific unit that I'm targeting these. I'm sure it does happen. A lot of that probably lies with the patrol officers and fire department that might respond. But myself, I really don't track those data points. But it is a good question, and it's just as bad because, alcohol is basically a legal drug. And you can get intoxicated, and then what happens if you drive a car drunk? It can lead to some bad things. But unfortunately, no, I don't have an answer to that. I do know our teenage usage rates have increased over the past couple years. I think we had 7 last year, and so far this year, I already have 1 fatal and 1 non-fatal.
You mentioned for parents to kind of search where the kids hang out at the house if they want to know if it's there. In your profession, is there a general location, like in drawers of clothes, in closets, under the bed, where maybe you find more of this than others, or is it just kind of a random smattering?
It could be anywhere. Anywhere they can hide it. More times than not, though, some of it may just be in plain sight, if you know what you're looking for. Sitting on their desk. The instance with the bedroom. This looks like everybody's teenage son's bedroom, just about. I found the stuff sitting right on his desk. Pieces of aluminum foil, burnt, charred, had little streak marks where the drug was on there, and as it would heat up, it would actually move across the foil, sitting in plain sight. And then I found, I believe in one of the drawers, I found the glass vials that had the actual drug in it that was used.
We have one from the stream also. I believe it's a parent asking, what's the best way they can kind of help their son not get involved with this, but also just if they see something?
Try to stay involved in positive activities. Think about the Mount, what we have here. We have all the sports teams. We're standing here in front of the stage. I just did a production. All the clubs that we have, I wish they had them, all those here when I was here, but then again, I was busy playing sports. But there's so much involvement out there. Stay involved. Try to make sure they're staying involved in positive activities is one of the biggest things. And if you do see them start to hang with crowds that just don't seem right, one of the biggest things that we try to do in getting people to rehab and detox and improve their lives is we tell them, change your places, people, and things. So if one environment's bad or doesn't look good, help them change it. Get into a more positive environment. Like I said, there's more than enough time here at St. Joe that you can stay busy with so many different things.
What about the mental health piece? You had mentioned like the connection that you've seen.
So, over the past 7 years, as I stated, I work with the health department. We have a meeting every month. In one of those meetings, we do a case review, and we will pick 5 cases from previous months, and we go through them, and we look at the facts of the case. We'll look at the drugs that were and their toxicologies. We'll pull them. It's called their PDMP, which is basically any time a doctor has ever prescribed you some kind of substance that's controlled, it goes into a database. We can pull that, and we'll look and see what they've been prescribed over the years. And a lot of times, there are a lot of like the alprazolams and the benzodiazepines to help with some mental health issues, simple anxieties, depressions. But then we will also, especially with my case review, as I'm investigating cases, I'm talking to their family members, some of their friends, and you start to pick up on elements of their life. And when people are doing well, they seem to be clean, and then they have some kind of issue, and it could be anything. They've lost their job, got a bad grade, it could be anything, and it's a triggering event, and they'll tend to slide and they'll start to use again. So we just, after years of reviewing cases and breaking these down, mental health seems to be a major contributing factor to a lot of people that use drugs in general, but very specifically a lot of the opiates.
So the other thing you want to be careful of, I also work in drug prevention, so you want to be careful if your son has been in a car accident or has a sports injury or has wisdom teeth extracted. Because doctors now are doing a better job of not prescribing as many opioid drugs for pain, but that's another thing that could potentially lead to an addiction, is that if your son would be on or your child is on because of a car accident and then they just take it for too long. So just ask questions to the doctor, like, is this an opioid drug? Can it be, will it be addictive? I mean, I think that's another.
It's a very good point. For years and years, about 5 years ago, doctors started really getting hammered with the pushing out of like the Oxycontins and the Percocets. You would go to your doctor and say, hey, I hurt my back at work, or hey, I had a sports injury, or I was in a car accident. And the doctor would write you a prescription for these miracle pain pills, but they started pushing them through pain management and would just push it out and push it and push it. That has been since greatly curbed. If you have some sort of car accident, some surgery, your surgeon or the doctor, they may prescribe you some for that chronic pain, but it may only be like a couple days worth, just when you're in that immediate initial pain stage. But you don't get a copious amount, you don't get refills the way they used to. And actually, a lot of the doctors now, for chronic pain, so fentanyl is actually, drugs are put on a schedule, 1 through 5. 1 being there's no real human necessity for it, and it's very highly addictive, and then has like no medical use. All the way down to 5, which is a lot of medical use, but very low addiction and very low harm risk to the person. Fentanyl falls on a Schedule 2. The reason it's a Schedule 2 and not a Schedule 1 is because fentanyl actually does have a medical use. It's used as an anesthetic. You go to get surgery, your anesthesiologist is probably putting you under with some kind of dose of fentanyl. But you're being medically monitored, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing, and they can control that. It comes in, for people with chronic pain, it comes in a transdermal patch that you can put on your arm. It's time released. It's only really small micrograms per hour that can get absorbed into the body. Or another one is, it's almost like a lollipop that doctors can prescribe. Again, it's very slow acting, it's time released as they suck on it, and then as it starts to relieve the pain, you stop. So it does have some medical uses for it. This stuff does not. It's illicit. It's made in the middle of Mexico with precursor chemicals that are made in China. And it's only made for one thing, to get you addicted and to make them a whole lot of money. So, fentanyl is a Schedule 2. Oxycodone, Percocets, they were also a Schedule 2. They did have medical necessity at the time, but they were very highly addictive. Now, a lot of times, if there's injury or severe pain, a lot of the doctors now are prescribing tramadol, which is, I believe, a Schedule 4, if I'm not mistaken. But it has a lot more medical use, less addictive properties, less harm.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And we want to thank Mr. Goldberg. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.